So talk to me about the buying process. You're usually pretty good at getting the buying process here.
Yeah, so we did actually get a good conversation about what next steps are. The buying process, I think, is going to have to come from somebody else. The CEO joined us on the second call that we had, and we learned a little bit more about how they function internally, and we were able to build a little more rapport with someone a little higher in the power lines.
So get used to using the word typically to kind of lead the witness sometimes. This is where you can maybe get the buying process a little bit easier, where you can even use the sailor upfront contract if you wanted to. It's like, hey, here's what we're here to talk about today. What else do you want to make sure that we get out of this presentation or this conversation? And then align that and then say, hey, by the way, say we get through all that stuff. Typically, the next steps are to get your CEO involved, and then you'll bring procurement in maybe early and see if that opens up the door for her to outline what the full process is. Because I will tell you, it is a danger sign when the person can't articulate the buying process.
Sure.
Right? If they can't sit there and tell you, well, yep, then the CEO comes in, and then if it passes that, then it goes here and it goes there. That means they're not usually used to buying stuff like this, and they don't know the process. And when they don't know the process, that's a massive red flag, because that's where they'll get stuck in internal shit, and they'll probably get deprioritized and everything else.
Yeah, it's a good option, I think, to test the waters there, and I appreciate that as well. When you're dealing with partnerships and sponsorships specifically, some of these folks are part of the process, but they don't necessarily drive the process. So that's sort of where we landed on this one. But I think I could probably get a little deeper into it with this person until they hit that ceiling of, I don't know. And that's when I pull that person in. So that's great.
And I think that's where we go. We talk a lot about this, right? The sophisticated buyer versus the unsophisticated buyer. The sophisticated buyer knows what they want. They know the process, and they're very specific. And if they can articulate that of how they got to this point and where things are going, then typically our role is to get out of the way, right? So basically make the buying process as easy as possible for them. But if they're an unsophisticated buyer, because when we're asking them questions like this, we realize that they might not really understand the process. They haven't done this before, that type of thing. That's when you got to lead. That's when you got to say, okay, well, typically once we do this, then we do this. And the customers that we work with the best, right? I always try to frame like kind of when things go well, this is what it looks like. Right. And that's where, when we talk about the scorecard, a lot of times I'll actually walk them through the scorecard that we use, that get scorecard. And I'll say, hey, typically these are the things you're going to ask from me. This is what I'm going to need from you. And when things go well, these are the people that are involved, and this is what happens. Are you willing to go through that process with me? Right. So you dictate a little bit more, but you got to figure out early on if they are sophisticated or unsophisticated. Okay.